coming to Job Search for International Students Part 1. There's a bunch of people that I want to introduce to you all. Hopefully this session will be informative. We're going to try to give you a lot of information. We're also streaming it on Facebook Live, so if you forget, you can always go back to Topple's page on Facebook and get the information. If you have questions, you can always feel free to reach out to us, all right? So just so you kind of get an idea of what we're going to talk about today, so we're going to do introductions. So we'll start with that. My name is Anna Penny. I serve as the Assistant Director of Internships here at Topple.
Good evening, my name is Coach A. Toomer, and I serve as the internship coordinator, so me and Anna work very closely together.
Hi, I'm Nellie Sutri. I'm a former UM student, so now recent alumni, and I'm a marketing manager at The Known.
Hi, I'm Anna Sippin, and I'm an Assistant Director in International Student and Scholar Services.
So what we're going to do is Nellie's going to share a little bit about her experience. She is a former international student at UM, so she has a lot of insight and wisdom to be able to share. Then ISSS, so Anna from ISSS is going to share a little bit about OPT, so optional practical training. And then I'm going to talk a little bit about ways that Topple can help you when it comes to the job search. How many people in here are graduating in December? Okay. How many people are graduating in May? How many people are graduating after this academic year? Okay. August, okay, August. So we have kind of a good mix. So we'll definitely go into that. So what I want to do now is I'm going to pull up this presentation here.
I can
scroll for you.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that works. Awesome. All right. Hey, guys. So, as Anna mentioned, or I guess as I introduced myself, I'm Nellie. And I graduated in 2017 here at UM. And I want to kick off my presentation today with a story. Hopefully one that a lot of you guys can relate to. See if you keep this slide. So this story dates back about 36 months. I was a junior here at UM. I was studying advertising at the School of Communication. Shout out, anyone here from School of Communications? Okay, we got one. Cool, love School of Communications. So 36 months ago, I was a junior here. It was fall semester, and I was in one of my classes, and a friend of mine had told me about this career expo going on. You guys all know about the career fairs, right? Anyone here not know about the career fairs? Cool. So the career fair was going on. It was a fall semester, and I had gotten coaxed into going. And I figured, why not? You know, I'd show up and just kind of vet out the different companies there. I thought maybe I would find a job. I show up to the career fair. It was at the Buck United Center at the time. I don't know if it's still there. And I'm in like a t-shirt and jeans. And to my surprise, there is a long line of students kind of wrapped around the building, all suited up, and they had, you know, their nice blazers, and they shiny shoes, and I felt very out of place. But I still got in line because I thought, what the heck, I'm already here. So I get in line, I finally make it to the front, and I essentially got rejected at the door. They said, you know what, you're not really polished enough, maybe come back in 6 months, and we'll talk to you then. So as someone in college who had always tried to finesse her way into clubs and bars, yeah, sorry, Anna, probably used to you, I was not unfamiliar with the feeling of getting rejected at the door, but it was a bit of a wake-up call for me because I realized, hey, I gotta take this career thing a little bit seriously. I'm from Canada, so you guys are all, I'm guessing, international students. Gotta take this career thing a little bit seriously and figure out what I'm gonna do. So I went back to my dorm that night for the next 6 months, worked on getting my act together for the following career fair, which was in the spring. So spring rolls around, and I figured, okay, I'm ready this time. I'm gonna come correct. So I had invested in a nice blazer, I had perfected my resumes, I had shined my shoes, I had the perfect amount of pressure in my handshake, I knew the right amount of time to hold my eye contact for, and I was ready to go. The first one there, get in, I'm making my rounds, I'm going to all the booths, and I finally get to one booth, and immediately hit it off with the hiring manager behind it. The booth was for Visa. You guys are all familiar with Visa, like their credit card, right? So ironically, the booth was for Visa, and as I mentioned, I hit it off with the manager or hiring manager right away. And typically, you guys, who here has been to the career fairs? Raise your hands. A few of you. So typically with these career fairs, how it works is it's kind of like speed dating. They're like, you know what? Don't call us, we'll call you. And so you hand out your resume and hope that they give you a call back. In this particular situation, though, because it went so well, she actually scribbled her phone number and email on the back of her business card. She said, look, I think you're really serious about this. I might have a position for you. If you're still interested, give me a call. So I went back to my dorm that night, sent her a thank you note, sent her my resume, and I was ready to go. And she got back to me in a couple days. Fast forward, I ended up getting an interview with the marketing manager over at Visa in San Francisco. It was a phone call interview. And it was a slam dunk. Probably still to this day, top 3 interviews I've ever had in my life. It was amazing. And the woman basically hired me on the spot. She said, you're going to be perfect for this. I can't wait for you to join our team in San Francisco this summer. And as someone who had spent most of her summers working in retail, being a barista, I was really excited at the fact that this could be my first big girl job. And I told my friends, I called my parents, I said I'm off to bigger and better things. I'm going to San Francisco this summer. And I'm good. You know, my hard work paid off. I get a phone call a couple days later, and it's from the hiring manager, and she says, hey, Nellie, I heard your interview went great. That's awesome. I'm about to send you over the contract, but one question. I remember you saying you were from Toronto. Would that mean that you need sponsorship this summer? And I said no, because as an international student, I am entitled to a certain amount of hours that I can work in the summer. And she said, oh, awesome. But if we were to hire you full time, would you need sponsorship? And that's kind of when I hit a brick wall. And all 4 walls around me started to close in because I had to be honest with her. I needed sponsorship. If I was going to graduate, I eventually would need, for the company I worked for, to sponsor me, or I would have to move back to Canada. Why did I tell you that story? I didn't tell you that story because I wanted to dishearten you. It's not meant to be a sad story, but I wanted to tell you that story because I want you to know that I know how you feel. I understand the amount of rejection that you face as an international student and how it's so much higher than the average American student. I also understand that there's a lot of uncertainty and we don't have all of our questions answered. Hands up if you felt that way before. I know more of you in this room probably have or are about to. So I also wanted to tell you that story because there's a happy ending. I'm standing in front of you right now. I recently graduated, as I mentioned. And I have a full-time job, and I have an H-1B visa, so I came out on the other side. But there are certain things that you can do to set yourself up for success. Your story is going to be different than your story, and they're all going to be different from each other. It's different than my story. But I do think there are certain commonalities that you can do to get ahead of the game. So with that, I'm going to jump into the presentation if we want to go to the next slide. Next slide. So the first thing you can do is know your options. Now, what does that mean? What I mean when I say know your options is know how your nationality, your major, your family history, all of these things, your graduation date, come into play when it comes to your journey. What does that mean? Well, I'll give you an example. I told you I was from Canada. Someone from Canada, or me in this case, is eligible for different types of visas than, say, someone from Singapore. And on the same token, I was a communications student. So I was not in the same bucket as someone who's a STEM student as far as my OPT options go. Now, where do you start if you don't know your options? Let's go to the next one. If you don't know your options, these are some places I would start. The first is the ISSS office. You guys know what the ISSS office is? International Student Services, Student Scholarship Services. We got someone here is going to talk about that later, but the ISSS office is a phenomenal resource. They're here on campus, they're free to you, and they're a wealth of knowledge. You're going to hear about a little bit more about that later. I would immediately block off 30 minutes to an hour. Sorry, I know that's probably a lot of time when you got to really go town, but I would block off time with whoever your coordinator is, and take that opportunity to fire any questions you have away at them. They are going to be your best friend, and they will hold your hand through this process if you let them. It's up to you to take that initiative. The second step is TOEFL, which I understand you guys are all here. Obviously, you're taking advantage of it already, but it's a phenomenal resource. I actually found my current job through Handshake. It's a really awesome way to kind of filter through jobs and see, okay, this company is offering sponsorship, this one isn't, and if a company isn't and you have your heart set on it, with all due respect, move on. It's not worth your time and it's not worth their time trying to convince someone to offer sponsorship. Go for the ones that are already open to that. Thirdly, the internet. I mean, it sounds obvious, but I underestimated what a simple Google search could do for me. And then fourthly, I know there's a part 2 to this where fragment, which is a really awesome legal term, is going to be talking to you guys. But if it does come down to it and you want professional legal advice, try that route as well. I did it. Can be a lot of money. I know that the school's offering that at obviously free resource to you guys, but that is an option as well. Some things I would ask them about: CPT, OPT, and the different types of visas. Those kind of are your main questions as undergraduate students, or maybe there are even master's students in here, but those are the kind of main things that you want to be asking about. So what do you do when you know your options? Where do you start there, or then? The first place I would start, and this is not just because I'm in marketing, although it is kind of because I'm in marketing, is brand yourself. Now that sounds, I know, very repetitive. If anyone here's in the business school, you probably hear it all the time: brand yourself, brand yourself, brand yourself. What does that mean? If you think about it this way, when you get a package in the mail, what do they look like? They're usually brown, it's a brown box, right? And they look like every other package. But when you get a package in the mail and it's got pretty wrapping paper and there's a pretty ribbon on top, don't you want to open that one first? It's kind of like that when employers are looking for candidates to hire jobs. So you want to be that pretty package with a pretty bow on top that makes them say, oh, I want to hire them. You want to be at the top of the pile when it comes to your resume and when it comes to your application in general. So that's why branding yourself is critical. Where do you start if you don't know how to brand yourself? Ask yourself what industries you gravitate toward. Are you really interested in graphic design? Are you interested in aerospace engineering? Start there, because chances are you're going to want to work in an industry that you're interested in, right? Secondly, ask yourself what you're masterful at. Are you an Excel whiz? Are you a phenomenal graphic designer? You know, those are the skills that you really want to play up. And then on the same token and in the same breath, you know, where do you have room for improvement? What could you improve in? I know for me, you know, there are a lot of things I could probably improve in, but the way you want to spin that is when you're going to those career fairs or you're in those type of conversations in the interview, spinning it around and saying, hey, this is something that I can offer your company, and this is what I think I could gain from your company. I actually now have gone to a couple career fairs and been on the other side of the booth and have had the opportunity to talk to several students, and one of the things I will say that a lot of the American students and international students, I hate to say it, struggle with, and it's a huge hindrance, is they go into these situations thinking that they go, you know, what can you offer me? You know, what do you have for me? And as someone who's hiring, that's one of the hardest things to hear, because I want to hear what you have to offer me. So you need to kind of brand yourself in a way that makes you seem like an asset, but also someone who has something to learn and something that you want to gain out of it. So that's where I would start, you know, and also kind of start up corporate. Personally, I would go corporate if you're looking for sponsorship. I know that is a debatable topic, but they usually have more bandwidth to sponsor. They have more resources, more money, more energy, and HR department. That's just my personal stance on that. But ask yourself, you know, those tough questions. Okay? So then once you've kind of decided on your brand, how do you start, right? So between that 6 months, I told you guys the story about getting rejected at the career fair and then finally getting to go back. I got involved in student organizations. I was an advertising student. I got involved in the National Student Advertising Competition. I also went on the Miami Facebook page and found a little social media gig for myself. That was experience. I did a little website, I think, for a class that I was able to kind of spin. And so when I went back to the career fair 6 months later, I had more experience to show. You are not realistically going to graduate with 5 years of work experience. It's just not going to happen. But there are things you can do to set yourself apart from the rest of the applicants. So start there. And if you don't want to get involved in a student organization, start something yourself. Start a blog, start a website, you know, create a social media page for yourself. It's so easy now, but it's hard to start. So just start. And if you want to go to the next slide, a couple things to keep in mind are to have different options. So you can go kind of one of two ways. You can make yourself really malleable and very kind of vague and ambiguous, or you can have a couple different resumes to pull from, a couple different kind of elevator pitches to go in with, and make yourself more desirable. So when I told you guys about that time when I got rejected from visa at the career fair, what I didn't tell you is that I went to 30 other booths. And one of those 30 other booths hired me. It was a tech company, so totally different than a credit card company in a lot of ways. And I was able to spin my experience in that kind of meet and greet period and in my resume to land myself a wonderful summer job. So did it sting that I didn't get the one visa? Yeah, it did, but I had a plan B that I was able to fall back on, and it worked out. So have a plan B. Personal plug here, I actually have a nonprofit that I'm starting, and we work to empower young women in the Miami area. So if you are a young lady and you're interested, we're having a resume building workshop and panel discussion in December. So come see me after and I'll tell you all about it. But have options, have plan Bs, have plan Cs. So what do you do once you've got your foot in the door? As an international student, you have to understand that you are working against an entire pool of American applicants, even when you're already in that seat. When you're already in the internship and you're sitting in that chair, don't think there isn't some other American student who's trying to get in that position. So you really need to make yourself amazing. How do you do that? How do you go above and beyond? Well, be a sponge. You know, be an active learner, be an active listener, raise your hand and volunteer when you can, and seem passionate about it. Even if it's something you don't want to do for the rest of your life, you're already in that situation. Show that you're interested, show that you're passionate. Couple months in, plant the seed. What does that mean? Well, I'll give you an example. I found an internship, the one I told you guys I found the job that I currently have through TOEFL. And once I was already in the internship, a month or two in, I told my manager, hey, I can see myself here long term. I'm graduating in May. Is there any opportunity for me to work here, realistically? And do you think that you guys could sponsor me? And she said, you know, Nellie, I can't guarantee anything, but if you give me the information, I can see what I can do. And that's where knowing your options comes in handy, right? Because I knew my options, I was able to put together a document, and she was able to take that to her boss, who went to his boss, and they were able to vouch for me. Even when I wasn't in the room, I was still planting the seed. And that kind of leads to my next point, and that's being your own publicist. So when my manager kind of started vouching for me, she actually quit in that process, and I had a new manager that I had to now report to. But they weren't really invested, they were busy, so I started to take it upon myself to get in touch with HR and to get in touch with whoever higher leadership was and be persistent about it. I kept timelines and tabs on myself. You can't assume that just because someone says yes, you're in. That's not how it works. It's up to you to take the initiative and take it upon yourself to take that next step. So be your own publicist and be persistent, it will pay off. Next slide. I kind of wanted to end with this quote, and it's one that I personally go back to a lot. And it says, opportunity doesn't knock, create a door. The perfect job won't always fall in your lap, sponsorship may not always fall in your lap, but you can create opportunities for yourself that will set you apart from the rest of the crew. So with that, we are going to do, I think, a little Q&A, but with that, I am actually hiring an intern right now, and the company I work at, we're based in Portugal, we're hiring 2 interns. Both positions are on Handshake. It's at Dannon. So you can either come talk to me afterward or go on Handshake. I think the applications close November 29th or 30th. So yeah, and then as I mentioned, I am hosting like a resume building workshop. So if anyone here is interested, come see me after. But yeah.
Thank you,
Questions?
Does anybody have questions specifically about what Nellie talked about just now?
I'll be one question.
It's a safe space, I promise.
Where are you guys from? Venezuela? Italy? Yeah? Anyone here from Canada? No, there's never.
We'll keep kind of marinating on what she talked about. You're going to stick around for a little bit.
Yeah,
right?
I'll be here.
So if you have...
Yeah, so I want to ask, did you ever use other resources except Google careers and a different job also?
Yeah, I definitely applied. I was on Glassdoor, I was on Monster, all those websites where there were job postings, intern.com. So I definitely did that, but my experience personally is it can be a bit of a black hole when you're just kind of putting your resume online and hoping, crossing your fingers, wishing upon your lucky stars that you'll hear back. I think what ultimately wins the job is how you come across in person and the amount of persistence that you put into that. So I'll actually tell you guys a second, or I've told 3 or 4 stories already, but I'll tell you one more. The job that I currently have, I did find it on Handshake, and this was about 2 years ago now. They had a date posted. They said, we're closing applications on December 3rd, I think it was. And I had bookmarked it. I said, okay, I'm going to apply over Thanksgiving break. The week before Thanksgiving, I went back to the application. I wanted to make sure it was still up. And they took it down. They took it down 3 weeks early. And I was crushed because here I was. I had my heart set on this application, and I thought I was going to apply online. Like, you have to look different ways to apply for things. I thought I was going to apply online, and they took it down. So I got on the phone with Topol, and I begged for an interview, and they said no. And I kept begging, and they kept saying no. And I said, look, I have my heart set on this. I planned my semester around this job. Can you at least send the hiring manager my resume and see if they would consider it? And fast forward 3 interviews later, 25 applicants later, I got the job, and then they hired me full time. So I do personally think that Handshake is a great resource. I also think that the career fair is a good opportunity to kind of speed date the different companies. And not to say you can't find a job online. I did find one on the UMiami Facebook page. But if I were going to go through that process again, I would go to UMiami Facebook pages, reach out to alumni, go to alumni events. I found an internship one year through a school organization. The way I look at kind of the job search is it is a full-time job to find a job. So when you're looking for those jobs, be strategic because your time is valuable and you want to make sure that you're maximizing it.
And we'll talk a little bit more about additional resources in a few minutes.
So during the interview that you have, like, what is the most difficult question you ever get? And like as an employer, like, do you always have to know the answer to the question and would it look bad if you don't?
So this is a personal question because I might not be in the same industry as a lot of you guys. I know one of my counterparts, he asks ridiculous questions like, how many tons of paint would it take to paint the entire American Airlines stadium? But the hardest question I've been asked, or at least the one that stands out the most, is how would you explain Facebook to your grandfather? Because to me, that's a question where you really have to show your creativity and you have to think on your feet. And it's not really a question you can always kind of finesse your way out of. The questions that I've always done really well in, and the ones that I think you guys can, this is again where you can kind of train yourself to be good interviewees at, is what are your skill sets? What can you offer? What was your favorite class? Like those types of questions, with all due respect, should be a home run. Because those are questions you can easily prepare for. The ones where you have to think on your feet and get a little more creative, I always find more challenging. But those are the questions that typically make or break you from the rest of the applicants. Right? Those are the questions that make you stand out. And they're an opportunity to connect with whoever's interviewing you. So I remember, not to continuously diagnose, but I remember the person who was hiring me, when they brought up the analogy, they said, how would you describe Facebook to your grandfather? And then they gave an example. They said, so for me, I think about cars and I hate Ferrari, but I love Lamborghini, or I love Aston Martin. And that was an opportunity for me to connect with him and not with him. So find opportunities to connect on a personal level with the person who's interviewing you, because the personal relationships always win. You could be the smartest person in the room, but if you're not able to connect on an emotional level with whoever's interviewing you, you have failed. I don't know if that answers your question.
And I will say when it comes to interviewing, because I think that's one of the hardest things for everyone, is you need to practice. Especially if English isn't your first language and maybe it takes a little bit more time to get something across, because I know my dad is a native Spanish speaker, so he has to hear it in English, think of it in Spanish, think of his response, and then answer back because English isn't his first language. So, you want to be able to practice those things. We offer practice interviews here at Topol, so all you have to do is contact the front desk. You come in, you tell us what you're practicing for. If it's for a specific role, great. If it's, I just need practice, we can do that. And we generally do hour-long appointments. and we'll spend 20 to 30 minutes asking you questions as if it's a real interview, taking notes on your answers, body language, filler language, and then we'll spend 30 minutes processing it, giving you feedback, telling you how you did, answering any questions that you might be unsure of, like, do I bring a bag? Do I bring a pen? What do I do? Can I have a water? You know, all these things. But interviewing to me, it's like working out. It's like building up a muscle. The more you do it, the easier it is. And when someone says, tell me about yourself, you're like, boom, here's who I am, here's what I'm looking for. But if you never practice, it's definitely going to be harder. To kind of answer your question about the hardest question, I would say, and obviously as an employer, she can kind of correct me if I'm wrong, the goal is not to haze you, it's not to throw you off and like confuse you. Usually it's to see, do you think quickly on your feet? How do you handle the unexpected? What is your thought process? A lot of times we see, like for example, in like business or like consulting or analyst or things like that, they'll ask you how many gallons of paint does it take to paint the American Airlines arena. They want to see how you process the information and how you make decisions. Whether you get to the right answer or not is not always the goal. So, any other questions for that? Those are great.
How early is it to start job search? Because I'm a freshman and I have a major in economics. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know. Like, if you had to give advice to freshmen degree, what would you give?
What are you majoring in?
Bio.
Bio. You know what? I think it's never too early to start. I probably wish I started earlier. But you, as a freshman, probably have, it really, I guess, you know, it depends on your pace. If you are in a position where you can take on a lot of work, then you have time. If you are a really demanding major, I would start now because there's no better time and you definitely don't want to have this like, pardon my French, but oh shit moment, you know, when you get to junior year and you're like, uh-oh, I have no experience, this is harder than I thought. So if you're able to take on something small, I would start there, be it through a school organization. I mentioned when I was in advertising, I know it's not bio, but when I was in advertising, I was able to take a course that also doubled as an organization. It was the National Student Advertising Competition. So if there's something in your field, like some kind of science competition or bio organization that you can get in early and then maybe build up to a leadership position, so when you get to senior year, you're like, hey, I am the president or I am the whatever, treasurer of the bio organization or this sorority or fraternity that specializes in that, then that will kind of look good on your resume or your experience 4 years down the road. So start small, you know, if even if you have just an interest in bio, or let's say some kind of subsegment within that, maybe start a blog on it and just start kind of, you know, once a month, write a little blog post, and then before you know it, 4 years later, you'll have so many posts to show for. You'll be able to go to the interview and say, actually, I'm passionate about this. I started my own blog on it 4 years ago, and it's evolved into this. You know, don't put the pressure on yourself too much of, I have to be at JP Morgan or I have to be at NASA. It's like I had so many little odd jobs and little internships that are essentially meaningless, but they were stepping stones to where I am now.
We'll take one more question and then we'll move into the ISSS presentation and then we'll do kind of a large Q&A.
In terms of your resume, what do you think they can make you stand out?
What can make you stand out? Well, I think it depends on your field. So that's why I'm actually hosting the resume workshop, and you'll have to come see me at the end of this too. I'll tell you more about it. But I think it depends on your field. So if you're a finance major, for example, you're going to want to kind of tailor your resume to highlight your analytical abilities and maybe don't kind of stress all the fluff. If you are a graphic designer, making your resume really pretty and have those graphic design elements that shows that you're artistic is going to make you stand out. So it's all about tailoring it to your audience, but certainly highlighting your education, graduation date, any experience you have, participation in organizations, languages. I mean, actually that's a real benefit of being an international student is how many of you in this room are bilingual or have more multilingual? Yeah, all of you almost. And even if you're
better than me.
I mean, use that to an advantage, spin it, you know. I think I think it really just, at the end of the day, if I was gonna leave you guys with one thing, it's all how you spin it. It's all how you spin it. So, don't let yourself get in your way. You are your own best advocate, but you will have to be on your A game if you want to outcompete with all the American students. Okay? Yeah. Thank you so much. Yeah, absolutely. And I have my business cards up here too. If any of you guys wanna, let's see. If any of you guys wanna